Hi, Paulina. So I work with partners across our global ecosystem, typically with partners in our general business space, but it's not restricted to it, typically with the CEOs or the leadership teams of those partners. And I help them to understand the things that they need to do to make a cloud business work. In other words, how to be profitable in the modern world. And I really love engaging with people, so I love engaging with them and helping them to understand and helping to motivate them, inspire them to apply that to their own businesses and to see them flourish. It makes me very happy. So I grew up on a little farm in South Africa. So I grew up in Africa, but most of my growing up was on a little farm in South Africa. Where my holidays would be spent working with the farm animals and playing with the local kids on the farm and things like that. And something that being on a farm in Africa teaches you is how to be independent or self-sufficient and be able to make things work. So you tend to make things work with what you have, and you don't expect to get anything from anybody else. But I thought, just growing up, probably people who were influential in my life, there was, at that point in time, when my brother-in-law was probably very influential on me at that point in time, very entrepreneurial kind of guy, small business guy, all about, how to be an entrepreneur and how to make things work. Probably in my school life, I had a super history teacher who's made me very interested in learning and interested in understanding. So I think he was probably the most influential actual person in that stage in terms of my learning. I think growing up in South Africa, I didn't really, I had a lovely childhood in terms of the open space and the freedom to do things. And so the most frightening things on the farm would be the poisonous snakes that we had, would probably be the most frightening thing. Probably the only other time it was a bit scary as a kid was because I'm not a very good rugby player, but I had to play rugby. You tended to be at the bottom of everything and come away with all the bruises. But apart from that, it's good growing up. My free time now, so I really enjoy being outside. So I enjoy the garden. I enjoy doing things outside. I enjoy walking the dog. I enjoy contributing to friends, helping friends out, helping keep the neighborhood clean, and making it good and social for all of us that live there. I had a variety of job roles. I think probably I've learned something from all of them. So every one of them has taught me something. I think the first job role I had was working for a company that had helped to fund my university studies, and that was quite interesting. And I stayed there 6 months mainly because the apartment I lived in, which was quite close to the factory, the bed used to shake as the factory next door was pressing out steel, because the steel press used to make the bedroom, the whole building shake. So I didn't last there very long but I still learned something. I learned something about the environment. Probably then getting into helping my brother-in-law with his business, and then later on becoming a business consultant, implementing then the equivalent of ERP systems, taught me a lot about business, and getting into later on into speciality manufacturing scheduling taught me a lot about how to look at business in terms of constraints and optimization, which was really fascinating. And then my journey through SAP. I think so SAP got in the blood, so to speak. So I really enjoyed SAP, and at that point in time, you get to a point when you feel a little bit stale perhaps, and you feel things not moving, so you have to challenge yourself. And so by leaving SAP at that point in time, staying in the ecosystem but leaving SAP allowed me to challenge myself and learn some different things. So I moved into a small software partner who later on became acquired by OpenText, and then later on moved to another organization learned a lot around sales operations and business management. Not always lessons that I like to learn, but I learned them, and they're so good to take with you. I enjoy working with people, so I enjoy communicating with people, I enjoy engaging people, and for me the most important thing is being able to create that empathy, that rapport with people, so to demonstrate understanding, because what drives me is to make a contribution. I want to make a contribution that has an impact, so I try desperately to understand the person, understand the context that they're in, and then give them something that will be useful to them. And of course, in the context of what we're doing at the moment is also help those people to think. So if I can help people think, then I come away very, very satisfied. In fact, which reminds me, my university professor said to us when he in our first year at university, he said, "I'm not too sure that you'll learn very much from me at university, but if I can teach you how to think, then I'll be very satisfied." And I feel the same. The main challenge is a very human one, and that's we all get to know what we know. We all get comfortable with what we're doing. We know how to be successful with what we're doing. And so it's very difficult to then challenge yourself and change. It's very difficult. Now, I might like to think that I'm open to change, but I'm just as difficult to change, or I find it just as difficult to change as anybody else. So I think that's probably the first thing would be that the status quo is very appealing. So there's this inertia around doing what you know, because doing something new is inherently risky and therefore scary. So how do you tackle the new things, and how do you manage that risk? I think it's very scary to sometimes to try those new things out. There's lots been written and said about all this. There's the systems that we have around us, the processes that we have around us, the organization that we have around us, the KPIs we have are all entrenching our behavior. So all of these things are related, and to actually make change happen is quite difficult. So in those organizations, there's that analogy of the human and how we our bodies defend ourselves against viruses. If something foreign comes into our body naturally reacts to push away the virus. And it's a bit like that with organizations. When you introduce a new idea into an organization, then it's all these established KPIs, processes, organizations all seem to attack that thing like a virus. And it's very difficult for that new idea to succeed, to survive.
Right.
So a couple of things. Number one, I would say the fundamentals are recurring because it's a business where customers want to consume as a service and pay for a service from us. So that's why it's both based on recurring revenue, but also the fact that that's where the market is right now and is increasingly going that way. So it's fundamental to any modern business that they understand how to manage a recurring revenue. And all the challenges around recurring revenue in terms of your cash flow, your profitability, all those things that are driven by that kind of business. As an industry, the technology-based industry is very young, and what you see is the industry growing up, where customers have far more choice than they've ever had before, and far more knowledge than they've ever had before. So their ability to make good choices is far better than it's ever been. And for us, or for any one of us in the services industry, to be able to win that customer, we have to make ourselves visible and compelling in the middle of all this competition. And so the only way to do that is to be truly customer-centric and really understand the customer and really understand how we can deliver the business value that they desire. Well, the first thing you already mentioned, and the first and most fundamental thing, is being customer-centric. So you can't do anything if you don't understand your customer. And along with that, being customer-centric is also understand that it's about a long-term relationship with your customer. It's not a short-term transactional relationship. It's a long-term relationship where you're providing a service. You earn the right to provide a service to the customer over a long period of time. When you earn the right to provide a service to your customer over a long period of time, then of course you sustain and defend that recurring revenue for a long period of time, which maximizes your chance of making money. The second thing, though, is to make sure that based on your understanding of the customer and your capabilities in business with technology, whatever, that you bring those together and are able to create and deliver a compelling value proposition. So those are the two sides, the first and the second thing. Know your customer, understand how to create and deliver a compelling value proposition. And then it comes down to managing it really well. Make sure you don't spend too much money. Make sure that what you invest in acquiring customers is proportionate to how much profit you can make. Make sure that you do a damn good job on delivering what you promise. And work with your customers to be your advocate. The challenge, the biggest challenge in that first phase that partners have, or any company has, is where business is already established and has those established organizations, the established maybe silos, the established KPIs, then trying to navigate and create change across those silos, maybe change the KPIs, is difficult. And there's always a tendency to make compromises, and those compromises might actually get in the way of you having that successful long-term customer relationship. So it's actually the homemade challenges are the most difficult ones. So clearly, having an entrepreneurial mindset and the leadership to execute on that entrepreneurial mindset is what you need as a business. I already mentioned then understanding your customer, so really understanding your customer. And to really understand your customer, you must be very focused. You can't understand everybody. You have to choose where you're going to focus and where you're going to be able to really understand your customer, creating that compelling value proposition that you can also deliver. In terms of looking at your organization, up front, understanding what your organization is going to look like by the time that you've been through a full cycle. So understanding how you're going to go about creating your value proposition, how you're going to go about communicating and acquiring new contacts, how you're going to nurture those contacts so that they understand and trust you and invite you to help them deliver some business outcome for them, so how they become an opportunity, how you actually take that opportunity and turn it into a project which you can deliver, where you help them achieve the outcome that you promised them, and ongoing, how you help them to be continuously successful so you can create and sustain, nurture that relationship for life. Well, I think having an innovative culture is what you're talking about. So, and to me, that means how do you keep on learning? Because you need to be continuous learning. And going back to the things about us, none of us humans finding it easy to change. It's much easier for us to change incrementally. Therefore, how do we keep on challenging ourselves and learning? So, what is it that we can do to look in the mirror? What is it that we can do to learn from others? What is it that we can do to get feedback? How can we listen and learn? And from time to time, really shake ourselves up and do something completely different to challenge how we're learning. If at an individual level it's difficult, at an organization level it's even more difficult because you've got lots of people. Our customers and we running businesses are very similar. That we will appreciate people or sources of knowledge that we can learn from. So finding those sources, be they organizations or individuals, who are experts and have thought-provoking or thought-leading content that we can read and stay up to date with. I think that's where our customers as well as we look for those places to go to learn from people that we trust. all of us, the reason why we work, the reason why we're in business, is for somehow to make money to pay for something. So we as employees, we're earning money to pay our bills. If we own a company or a shareholder, we work to create wealth. On the other side, we might be working to invest in the environment, to invest in social charities. We might be working to invest in other things, but we need the money to be able to do that. So our ambitions may be to make a contribution back to society. I mean, also what you notice right now is, in the world we live in today, just how suddenly and finally things like the environment are such high profile, and how really customer behavior is changing based on the pedigree and the reputation of companies that are producing, for example, and their social responsibility, how even investors are changing. Their expectations of company boards of directors and how they work to make sure that there is a social and an environmental agenda in our biggest companies.
Perfect. Charles, thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Paulina.